Here we're going to continue using the AEC objects, and we're going to add some windows to our walls. If you've watched the other video on the creating the walls and the doors, you should have something roughly similar to this if you've been following along, where you have your 3 rooms and you have 3 doors, each one a different type of door. So you have your pivot, sliding and bifold door. Now we want to add some windows, so clicking on the create panel, clicking on the drop down, and we select windows, and you can see there are 6 different types of windows. The fixed, the one that we're going to go for first, and this one is just a nice simple window to use. Again, make sure that your snap is on, right click and just check to make sure edge segment is enabled. I'm going to close that, and on the edge click, drag, define its thickness up and click. We're going to need to move this window up slightly, so turn off the snap quickly and move the window up, and you can see, if we zoom right in, you can see the purple line here where the wall now has a boolean sort of square ready for the window. So that's your basic fixed window, and if we look in the modify panel and click on there, you can see there's a few options available. Just like the doors, you can change the height, width and depth and the frame, but the additional option here for windows in particular is the glazing, because you're going to want to have some glass in the window, and you can choose how thick it's going to be. So if we go to the top viewport and just increase the depth just so that we can see the frame, and maybe make the frame slightly thinner on the frame there, and if I rotate this round, I think perspective viewport would be useful, and just zoom out slightly and render. So that's your first window, that's your fixed. We're going to have a look at one more which we can see for the sliding, and obviously you can have a play around and try some of the other windows yourself, and I'd expect it to be a case of choosing the right window as you sort of need them. And if we go to the help and again type in AEC, double click on design elements and choose windows, you can see a good description of what each window does. So we have casement, pivoted and so on. You can choose which one you want, all the materials, everything listed there, and I'd recommend that you have a look to see what they do. Close that quickly. So one more window. I'm going to have this on this wall here. So sliding window, wireframe, make sure that our snap is enabled, and click and drag on the edge, and click on the move, undo the snap quickly and move the window up to where we need it, about there. Now if I click on the modify, just like the door, you can choose how open the window is. Open and closed. Now a very useful option is, once you've got windows set up, I'm going to look at cloning this window and placing it here, and it just saves all of the creation parameters. So holding shift down and dragging on the X for this instance and releasing it here, I'm going to use copy because I don't want them to be working exactly the same, although instance is very useful in this case if you want them to be identical, and click on OK, and you can see we now have another window. And just to make it look slightly different, I'm going to change the width here, and I'm going to have 3 windows, so shift and dragging the X, and you can see we have 3 windows. Now this middle window, just to make it look slightly different, I'm going to change how open it is. So now we have a large number of windows and doors. Now at the moment we have the standard material, so we don't actually have any glass in there, and if I was to render this, none of the windows are see-through. That'd be a problem because obviously we want them to look like glass. So I'm going to open a material editor, and we need to use the multi-sub-object, and I'll explain that further. We'll go back into the help, AEC design elements, and go to Windows, and if I just scroll down, you can see we have the material IDs, and we have five material IDs, one for the front rails, two for the back rails, three for the actual glass, four for the front of the frame, and five for the back of the frame. So bearing that in mind, just going to minimise the help, I need a multi-sub-object material with at least 5 elements. So click on standard, select multi-sub-object and OK this. I'm going to discard the old material, click on OK. At the moment we have 10, so I'm going to reduce this down to 5. OK. Useful idea to do is to click on the little colour chip and just start selecting different colours initially. Yellow, green, blue and purple. So when I apply this to this window, for instance, and I zoom in, I can see exactly which colour affects which parts of the window frame. So I can see that the glass is green, so that's the first area I want to work on. So for this material here under Material ID 3, if I click on the material and just quickly reduce the opacity, for instance, and then click quick render, you can see now it's gone slightly see-through. And if I see this next to the other windows, you can see here we have this material applied to the glass. Once you've set it up for one window, very easy to then apply the material to all the windows. Again, I've not gone into detail of the actual glass because that's not the point of doing this tutorial. It's just a matter of showing you how you can set up the AEC objects. Right, so we have our windows mapped. I'm going to do the doors quickly, and in this material go back to the parent, and if I name this one Windows, I'm going to click and copy this material. I'm going to name this one Doors, and start applying it to the door, and then you can have different materials for the doors if you require. Obviously I don't want glass in these doors like the windows. You can have glass, but I'm going to prefer not to. So opacity back up to 100, back to the parent, render. You can see I now have the doors textured. Again, texture mapping takes a bit more time than what I'm doing, but it's not too bad. Now, bearing in mind the help for the doors and the windows, I want to look at how to map the wall. So back into the help and have a look. We have exactly the same 5 different materials, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it gives you an idea in the help exactly which part of the wall is going to be applied to. Now, drag and copy. I'm going to call this one Walls. Select the wall, apply it, and you can see now each of the walls now has a particular material applied